In today's video, I'm going to try to draw myself in a bunch of different art styles. So for today's video, I wanted to try a challenge that was really popular quite a few years ago, where an artist would draw themselves in their own style, and then try and copy that picture, but emulating the styles of popular cartoons, comics, anime, that sort of thing. As usual, I'm late to the party on this one, but I've always wanted to try it out, so why not now? I've picked out 8 different styles that I really like, and I'm going to try and draw myself in those styles, but first, I need to draw myself in my own style in the middle of the grid. So for this initial reference drawing, I decided on some simple clothing, just a red hoodie and a yellow t-shirt, which is a standard everyday outfit for me. And I also chose an open-mouthed smile and one hand held up in a little gesture. I find that for a bust piece like this, style tends to most clearly come across in the face and the hands, so I wanted to include at least one hand. I knew that the biggest challenges would probably be incorporating my glasses and my gray hair into the other styles, and yeah, that was pretty accurate. The gray hair and the glasses were really difficult on some of these styles. You'll see as I go along. Oh, and I wanted to mention that along the way you'll notice that I changed the background colors a few times because, as usual, I got indecisive in the middle of everything and decided to start playing around with background colors. The final pieces have light gray backgrounds, which you will see in the video along the way after I complete each piece. Maybe one day I'll be better at making firm decisions on these kind of things, but today was not that day. Anyway, I was pretty happy with the base illustration. I did it up pretty quickly, but I think it defines my style pretty clearly and gives me a really good starting point for the rest of this challenge. Now on to the fun part. So the first style I decided to tackle is Adventure Time, created by Pendleton Ward. Adventure Time is a really incredible animated TV show about the adventures of Finn and his pal Jake in the weird and post-apocalyptic land of Ooo. The show has all sorts of interesting characters, and over the course of its 10 seasons, the characters develop in very real and unexpected ways, with the show touching on a lot of very serious and heartfelt emotional topics that hit you square in the feels. The style of the show, however, is kind of simple and a bit silly. Most of the characters have faces with small round mouths and tiny wide-set eyes, which I actually found surprisingly tricky to replicate on a drawing of myself. This wound up being a surprisingly challenging one to start off with, and while I'm mostly happy with the final result, I probably could have done a bit better. Especially with the gray hair, the gray streaks aren't that great. After looking around a bunch, I couldn't find a good frame of reference for multicolored hair in the Adventure Time universe, so I decided to just kind of wing it, and it looks a bit dumb. I've drawn Adventure Time fan art before, but it was much closer to my style than in the style of the show. No matter, though, I'm pretty happy with this still, and it was a good warm-up for the styles that are coming up next. For the second drawing, I decided to take on Gravity Falls, which is another cartoon show. This one is released by Disney and created by Alex Hirsch. The show is about twins Mabel and Dipper visiting their great Uncle Stan in the forests of Gravity Falls, Oregon. Grunkle Stan runs the local tourist trap, the Mystery Shack, and Dipper very quickly realizes that there's a whole lot of weirdness surrounding the town. The show is about 3 seasons long, and it's a great one for older kids and adults alike. It's a lot of fun. For this drawing, I modeled myself pretty closely to Mabel, the twin sister to Dipper, the weird creative kid who loves arts and crafts because, she's basically me. This style was a bit more familiar to me in general, just because it's a little more similar to my own style than Adventure Time, for example. Still, it was hard to get the head shape in a way that I liked, and the mouth actually was really difficult. That protruding cheek that's prevalent on a lot of the characters was really hard to get right. I kept making it look like I had the mumps or something. I do think I landed on a version that I was happy with. Much like the last one, the gray hair looks a little weird as well, although I think I fit it more closely into the style this time. The glasses were tricky too, since the style of Gravity Falls kind of sticks both lenses together over the nose, but I think I pulled it off. I really like this style and how cheerful it is, and it was a lot of fun to try drawing like this. I'm quite happy with this one, and I think it stayed true to the style. For For the next piece, I'm going into anime, and in specific, a nostalgic favorite of mine, Sailor Moon. Sailor Moon started airing on North American TV when I was 12 or 13, which is like the perfect age to be watching a show about girls my age who turn into superheroes to fight interplanetary baddies. This show had everything: cute outfits, awesome fight scenes, emotional topics, characters all along the gender binary, and more. To this day, I really love the show and its remake, and they continue to hold a special place in my heart. Now, this style was deceptively hard. I know it detracts a lot from my original style, but I actually thought this one would be easier because I spent my early teen years drawing in this style obsessively. Granted, I was really bad at it at the time, but not for lack of practice. I did notice that while drawing this, my hand got this weird muscle memory for drawing the eye shape. It's funny how that somehow stuck at the back of my brain for like 15 years. It was really challenging to get the proportions of the face and the eyes right. Anime is, as most of you know, intentionally given more extreme proportions, and if, like me, you're out of practice with it, it can be really hard to force yourself to draw such huge eyes, small noses, weirdly shaped mouths, and that sort of thing. Still, this one was a lot of fun. It's obviously a much larger departure from my original style than the last two, and the gray hair was easier to add in because I decided to just draw them in as the hair highlights that you see on a lot of Sailor Moon characters. Overall, I was really happy with this one, although the style took more time than I expected to nail down. I'd watch an anime featuring me, wouldn't you? And now for the dumbest drawing in this series, based on Rick and Morty. Rick and Morty is an adult animated series about an old alcoholic scientist named Rick and his ever-anxious grandson Morty. Like many adult cartoons, the show is pretty absurd, crude, and offensive at times, but as the show progresses, the story becomes very deep and weirdly emotional. There were a lot of episodes that just left me thinking about their themes for a long time after watching. Definitely worth a watch, though this one you should not watch with your kids. The style of Rick and Morty is very simplistic and kind of dumb. I knew I wanted to stray from the open mouth smile for this one, and instead use the dumb little pout face that characters use when they're confused in the show. The pupils are drawn in kind of a fat star-like circle as well, which is kind of neat, but otherwise I found that the style fell a bit flat. I wanted to find ways to make this drawing more interesting, but I quickly lost interest in it, to be honest. I thought it would be more interesting to draw, but for some reason I couldn't get into it. You'll see that I cared so little that I even forgot to color the t-shirt, add eyebrows, and add the glasses. I had to add all that stuff later on. Sometimes that's just how it goes. I still love the show and highly recommend it, but I have learned that I do not love drawing in this style. I decided to give myself an eyebrow expression that matched my feelings about drawing in this style. This next one is a real escape from previous styles. Tim Burton. His style sort of runs a gamut, but for this challenge I chose to reference the style more commonly used in Frankenweenie and The Corpse Bride, as well as choosing to reference a few other artists who have done Tim Burton fan artwork. This one was pretty nuts. It was very fun and very, very challenging. I really loved Tim Burton's work growing up, as well as some inspired works such as the comics of Yonan Vasquez. But despite liking the style a lot, I've never ever put a lot of effort into trying to draw like this the way that I did a lot of other styles when I was younger. Getting the proportions and style right were really challenging. I knew I wanted to include a big creepy smile and the large sunken eyes. The hair was also a lot of fun since I gave it a lot more line detail than usual. I also liked drawing the creepy little pointy-fingered hand, and this drawing's a great example of how hands can tell you a lot about a particular style. For the color, I went a little more muted to go along with the grim style of Tim Burton's work, and I later realized the skin was a bit too dark since I'm a really pasty kid, so I lightened it up a bit in post. And I think this is the weirdest piece of the set, and also a really, really fun one. I don't think it emulates Tim Burton's style quite as well as I would have wanted, but considering how outside the box this style is for me, I'm still really happy with how it turned out. For the next style, I'm moving away from cartoons and anime and going into music, I guess? This one will be in the style of the Gorillaz artwork, drawn by the incomparable comic artist Jamie Hewlett, also of Tank Girl fame. I loved reading Tank Girl as a teenager, and it was around that time that Gorillaz also rose to fame. Having a band represented by the artwork of a comic artist was such a cool concept to me, and I loved the grittiness and intensity of his work. It's another style that I really tried to replicate in my drawings during high school, but I was pretty horrible at it, so I thought this would be a really fun reason to try it again. This was of course another challenging one due to the huge departure from my current style. I drew myself very similar to the character 2D, as he was always my favorite of the band. The nose and the mouth are very important aspects of Jamie's style, as are the hands. I think I could have done a bit of a better job of making the clothes match the rest of the style better. I think I made them a little too simple looking, but that's probably my only major gripe with this piece. When I started this challenge, I thought the Gorillaz piece would be the hardest one, and it wasn't actually. That honor goes to Tim Burton. Still, it was one of the more challenging ones out of the 8 that I tried, and I had a lot of fun with it, especially drawing the weirdly detailed boxy hand style. It's time for another favorite cartoon of mine, Steven Universe. This show might be one of my favorite shows of all time. It has everything. Great characters, cool space battles, queer space moms, an overarching interplanetary storyline, and super heavy in casual LGBTQ representation, which I am super into. I talk a lot about this show and how awesome it is, so I'll get off my soapbox for now and instead say you should just check it out if you get the chance. Much like the Gravity Falls drawing, this one is a bit similar to my own style, so I found it relatively easy to make a version of myself in the Steven Universe style. Plus, I've done a fair share of Steven Universe fan art, and since the show features a pretty wide range of diverse characters, it wasn't difficult for me to find aspects in the show that I could use as reference for my own drawing. This was probably the easiest out of the 8 styles I attempted, but it was still a lot of fun. Really quick and easy to draw, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. I think I really do look like a resident of Beach City. The last style I'm going to try today is the style of the Scott Pilgrim comics, more specifically the art style of Brian Lee O'Malley. These comics, and the movie based on them that came later, have a real special place in my heart. These characters might as well be straight out of my late teen and early adult life, especially since I spent a lot of time in those days traveling to Toronto on the weekends to go to shows at a lot of the venues that are mentioned in the comic. It's a super fun romp through subspace and other weirdness, and if you haven't read the comics or seen the movie, I highly recommend them both. They're a lot of fun. O'Malley's style in Scott Pilgrim is very heavy in black line work, which is something I haven't done much in my own work. Some of his characters also have kind of a weird, elongated face shape that I wanted to try, and they all have huge eyes. This is another style that I somehow thought would be easier to replicate than it turned out to be. I found the face shape, mouth, and eyes to be really challenging, and this was an interesting drawing in that I wasn't really happy with the sketch, but decided to move forward anyway, and as I started inking the details, I found it really started to shine, and I liked it a lot more. I'm really happy with the final piece, and I think this one might be my favorite out of all the 8 styles that I tried out today. And with that, challenge complete. A portrait of myself drawn in 8 different styles. Which one's your favorite? Let me know in the comments. This challenge was a lot of fun and a really great way to push myself out of my comfort zone. It's really fun to see myself in all these different styles, and I highly encourage my fellow artists to try it out if you haven't already. I hope you enjoyed watching this challenge as much as I did doing it. If you have a great idea for an art challenge I should try, let me know in the comments. I always welcome suggestions for future videos. And if you haven't already, I invite you to please like this video and subscribe to my channel. It really helps me out. I post tutorials, speed paints, challenges, and lots more with a ton of fun videos on the way. Thank you so much for watching today, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!